Okay, hey everybody. We're here today with Jonathan. He's the CEO of VEEPIO. He's also a resident entrepreneur with us at Vantage Ventures, which we're super proud of and excited about. VEEPIO is a technology that lets groups publish video content and then make it really interactive, either with web pages, onto different e-commerce platforms, so that viewers can engage with that video in all kinds of ways. Right now, they're partnered with the NFL so that fans can build closer experiences to their favorite teams, athletes, and also the team can be collecting information and understanding what content the fans are excited about and want to see more of. Jonathan, did I get that kind of right? Did I leave anything out?
No, it's pretty good. It's pretty good. It's just designed to enhance the fan experience. So you get more of what you want, when you want it, from whom you want to view it with.
Yeah, I love that. I think that it seems like it brings so much value to kind of all the people touching it, and whether that's from the point of view of the athlete or the team or the consumer, you're getting to kind of get just so much value in the content that you're looking for, which is really exciting. And so while that concept, I'm really excited to dive into more of that with you here in a bit. I'd really love to hear about how you got here, right? Right now, we're looking at this company that's got a partnership with the NFL, has done amazingly well, has great prospects going forward, and is really dynamic. But there was a whole lot, I imagine, that got you to this point, and I'd love to touch on that with you and understand kind of what your path looked like.
Sure, it's a crazy story. The story starts where you are now in Morgantown, and it's a long journey, and now we're back in Morgantown in the same place. Just to skip ahead a little bit, we're supposed to move into Vantage Ventures in Morgantown. We moved our office from New York City this past year, as you know, and the coronavirus hit. So now we're working at home. But it is an interesting story. So the founders are former West Virginia football players, Grant Wiley and Najee Good. And Najee was actually in the NFL and hurt. And he went back to Morgantown to see a game, and he ran into Grant. And, when you're hurt, you're not sure what you're going to do. And Grant invited him to the office in New York to see what we were doing. And we had the beginnings of the idea worked out, but to actually execute it, we knew we'd need all of us. And Najee asked if somebody could, one of his friends wouldn't mind calling in and listening to talk about what we were doing. And that happened to be D'Amico Ryans. He was an Eagles player at the time. Now he's the 49ers coach. And D'Amico stopped us about 20 minutes in and said, "Get started. I love it." So that's how we began.
Wow. Okay. Well, we got to back up, because I got to understand even how you got to that point, right? Where you have this idea working with Grant, and then Najee kind of realizing what a great opportunity, and then the three of you coming together for it. So I know right now you're coming to us, you have some family in Delaware, but then you came to WVU out of state, right? So how did you end up at WVU back in the day?
So I walked on the football team, which is interesting. Grant was on a scholarship. Najee walked on and earned one. And you play, and everyone that plays or starts ultimately thinks they're going to go to the NFL. And to a varying degree, that either happens or it doesn't. And if it does, it's usually a lot shorter than you think. So you've got this body of work that you prepared your whole life for, and now this skill set is completely irrelevant, right? The second you're cut for the last time. Well, at least that's what you think. But it turns out, at least for us, it's not. So we learned a lot of lessons in West Virginia, especially playing football, like teamwork. And football is kind of interesting because your teammates, right? You're there to block for someone to score touchdowns or make a field goal. But you're also competing against those same people every single day because you want to play. So this environment really breeds a certain continuity among groups that really know how to get along in a high-pressure situation, pick people up, make them better, and improve together as a unit. And I think those attributes were something that really stayed with us for a while. So if we fast forward to when I got fired for the 30th time playing football when I was done, I got a job online, got 2 job offers from Craigslist moving to New York City, which is you can tell how long ago that was. So the first was to get up at 4 o'clock in the morning and cold call Germans and sell them bonds. I didn't know. I'd never been to Germany, and I didn't know what a bond was.
Hold on, you got to tell me more about this. How did you end up in this situation? So you're kind of done playing football at WVU. I'd love to hear. I mean, the mindset of right thinking NFL naturally.
Yep. So I was working out for like the Seahawks. I worked out for a couple teams. I went to a lot of combines. I ended up playing arena football for 2 or 3 years, which is like football in a cage. They basically play it in a basketball field with turf or an ice hockey rink. Very dangerous. And when I got fired literally from every place in the entire country. Like I might be the most fired person you've ever met in the United States. So like this Corona period is like perfectly normal. Like your whole world changes. You have to do something else. Like we're all crazy kind of like that. So I decided to go to New York City. I wanted to see what it's all about. I don't know one person. So I don't even know how to I've been kicking a ball. I have literally no idea. I'm an anthropology major and sociology dual degree.
Where are you living?
So I was living in Manchester the last time in a Hooters Howard Johnson's combo. Like those are, that's where they housed us. So it was crazy. Anyway, so I go down to New York City. I have a couple months worth of potential funds to live off of. But New York is so expensive, I couldn't believe it. Mm-hmm. So I get these 2 job offers. I'm like, I better hurry and get one immediately to do something. And I got 2 job offers. One was to get up at 4 o'clock in the morning and call Germans and sell them bonds. I had no idea. I'd never been to Germany. I didn't know how to call there, number one. And I don't speak German, and I didn't know what a bond was. So I didn't take that. The second one was I got a job at a high-frequency trading firm, which I also didn't know what that was. And there was a catch. No one in there spoke English natively. So I go down there. I have no idea what I'm doing. Everyone, it was like being in China. I was at 50 Broad Street, which happened to be right next to the New York Stock Exchange. And I decided, I saw all these computers in there. I had no idea what was going on. And I said, well, maybe I'll get my licenses because, you have to get a license to trade stocks. Maybe I'll get those and I'll be better off in a few months. And I had a feeling there was something there. There was a reason I had to be there. I didn't know why, but I just started to learn as much as I could. And one of the first things I discovered was that the reason we were there is because that building at 50 Broad Street was the old switchboard into the floor of the New York Stock Exchange. Like literally, so in the roaring 20s, people would call in there, they'd connect you and you'd buy or sell stock. And so why that's important is the fastest point-to-point connection in the world to the New York Stock Exchange, right? So whether you're trading from China, everything had to go through these exact pipes. And so because of that, electronic trading was just starting to become a thing. And I got to learn from this crazy perspective, which is nuts. It's just like, how do you teach computers to buy and sell stocks or do nothing and trade, millions of them a second?
In a work environment, remind you now, where no one's speaking English.
And by the way, I've been kicking for 3 or 4 years, so not ideal. Anyway, I walked into New York City and I looked around, and I saw that just about everyone I met was absolutely phenomenal at one thing. Like these people, if you're scoring them out of 100, they were 99s or 100 at one thing. And if let's say there was 100 attributes that you could be, or 100 fields you could be good at, I was like, I'm like a 30 across the board. And the one difference is from West Virginia and playing football, I knew that I would get better if my goal was to continually learn and work hard. So every day I'd read, and I found that to be the one thing that all the most successful people I met had in common, is that they constantly read. So I just started reading everything I could. Probably took me 4 hours to read the Wall Street Journal the first time. I literally didn't know what any of the words meant. I had to look them up every 5 seconds. But after a few months, something interesting started to happen. I started to get the vocabulary that was necessary to really start putting the big ideas together. And once I did that, I found that I had an entire set of experiences and tools from football and going to school at West Virginia and bartending and all the stuff that you learn that I could use as mental models to be better at what I was doing than maybe someone I was competing against. And a lot of the guys I worked with were actual rocket scientists. I mean, from China, they were doing crazy things, but they were only a 99 out of 100. And while that's great, and again, almost a 30 across the board, And the next month I was a 31, and 32, and so on and so forth. So one of the things we learned was when you get done playing football, you know how to be a good teammate and how to work hard and to learn. Hit the books, you get the vocabulary for whatever that skill set is you're trying to achieve for that job that you've taken, and just go. And things will start to make sense for you. So anybody that's at WVU or looking to do this or transition during the coronavirus, I think that's a wonderful way to do it. It really applies to anything, and know that you couldn't be less prepared than I was for that field. Probably in a much better position, and if you can do it in New York, I really believe you can. In New York City, there's 1 million people who want the hot dog vendor's job.
Totally.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean that's amazing, right? Because it is so much of what you're saying around kind of that realization that not only had football and being on that team and in that environment really built you all of these skills that don't really get talked about as on the surface level. You know, they can really be the bread and butter of what turns into a successful entrepreneur or business person. And, you know, but I think what also strikes me is your point of just sitting down and making the effort to read that Wall Street Journal, right? Because I have totally been there in an environment where you're like, I have no idea what you people are saying. You're speaking a different language. And I think that, you know, there are so many folks in all over the country, and I know in West Virginia that have exactly, you know, maybe they're not playing football, but have grown up with that super intense work ethic, really understanding what collaboration and teamwork kind of means, right? Having these tight-knit communities.
It's like in a lot of those jobs.
Yeah, exactly.
And one thing I would add, Kelsey, is that it's not just the tools you develop playing football. I mean, obviously that's a special situation, but the unique thing is there are tools that you develop being you. So like as you're starting to talk about entrepreneurship in West Virginia and changing the culture, or maybe refining it to do this to Vantage Ventures and all the great stuff that we're about to do together, the message is that the only thing special about you is you. So the only way you can arrive at unique ideas and build them is by harnessing all the things that you've learned, because no one has lived your exact life. No one has lived in your position in your family, your school, your class, whatever it is, right? And I think those are some of the things that you're talking about that are really overlooked, that I also overlooked, but it just became apparent as you went through these experiences. And one thing that everyone in West Virginia is great at is they're doers. They've always worked hard. And to me, I only learned by doing. And I missed lots of kicks, which is why I got fired a lot. But it helped me have thick skin, and I could care less if I fail. Actually, I want to fail as many times as I can a day because I get better. And as long as I keep learning, I think the economics will take care of themselves. This is just my view. Maybe no one agrees. But if you keep learning, you're a continual learner, you will win eventually. Mm-hmm. I think that mindset is one we can all use.
Totally. No, absolutely. And so I guess in the spirit of that mindset, let's kind of go back to your setting. You've now totally taken on learning high frequency trading in a totally kind of crazy environment. Electronic trading's new, not a lot of English being spoken. You're in New York. You're making it work, and it sounds like you were there. Now, talk to me about how from there, kind of what was the path? Where did VEEPIO, any ideas start to seep in at this point, or was there something else in between where you were and the first beginnings of the ideas for VEEPIO?
So some of the first ideas for VEEPIO were around personnel, teammates. A lot of guys like me I knew were super talented. They maybe just didn't have the vocabulary in those fields, just like I saw myself. And so I realized, oh my gosh, there's 300 Division I schools. There's 100 football players at each. There's athletes, male and female, that are similar of mindsets. And people think they can only do certain things. And we have the path now to teach them how to learn. We know that they get the vocabulary. They're the best teammates on the planet. I'm like, whoa. And so West Virginia is not only the school, but the people of West Virginia is really representative of that teamwork culture, like working together to accomplish something. And I was like, whoa, I know human resource is a big part of any business. That is one idea I want to set aside. That's going to be very positive. The second is it takes about 2 years, I think, to start to begin to really understand what you're doing outside of school. And when that occurred, it was 2008 when the real estate crash occurred, right, and brought down the world.
Right.
What's interesting about that is computers and high-frequency trading. We're starting to do millions of messages a second, where some people might call someone on the phone. These machines were making buy and sell decisions based on information.
Right.
And so I kind of grew up in this environment outside of school that forced you to build systems that would make decisions in milliseconds. Now, most people, I think, would tell you that's the stupidest thing I've ever heard. If you make a decision that fast, it's probably wrong. Like, you shouldn't teach that. Well, I could lose my job if we didn't do that.
Right.
I literally lose everything in a minute. So I got this world-class education, but the world is falling apart by how do you capture information, establish some sort of commonality like the vocabulary so you can compare it, figure out what it says, what it means, how much it's worth, and then describe an action. Buy, sell, do nothing, run away. I don't know what it is.
Right.
But you see, this process applies to anything. So that was big. So I survived that crash. And when I finally Facebook IPO'd, I don't even know what year it was. And that was the big light bulb for me, is that I saw how much money they were worth. And I was like, I don't get it. There's just a box, and you're doing all the work. It's almost like that Mark Twain teaches you to paint the fence.
Yep.
Yours. I was like, you're doing all the work. It's just a gray box. And I figured out that they're getting 55 cents every time you touch the desktop with your mouse. And I was like, I am in the wrong business.
Wow.
And so I read the prospectus. I knew they were going to sell. They were going all mobile, and there's going to be 7 billion people with mobile phones in the future. And that really got me going. So I knew we had the people in the team. I knew how to process the information, quantify it, and decide an action. And I knew how to scale with mobile. So then it's like, okay, how do you do it?
Yeah, totally. So you've got all these disparate pieces, right? And this is where it comes in, this idea where you said you were like, yeah, I'm, started out 30% of everything, and then you had pumped those numbers up, and
you can double that and still have an F, by the way.
Okay, well, let's say we doubled it. Even if that's the case, right? You're then at a point of, it sounds like inflection, where you're realizing there's something going on with Facebook and what they're doing and how they're capitalizing on people's attention and clicks on their page and what that all means. So how did you then start to bring all these pieces together? The teammates you knew about, players, how to aggregate information really quickly.
Well, as I started talking back with Najee and Grant, we started to just look at ourselves and say, wow, we have these experiences, right, in the influencer world, at least in West Virginia at one time. We're influencers, they still are. But you playing on the field, you're talking directly with the fans, but you're on the platform of the team, right, and the school and the state. So you start to see all these components are together, and we're like, whoa, we're aligned with all of these individually and collectively. The technology needs to do that.
Yeah.
So how do you do it? So as the iPhone started coming out, we kind of figured out how to connect through a doorway, right? An app. There's 5 million apps. We didn't think we could ever beat Facebook. Why would you want to? You want to be friends with everybody. So we built technology that integrates because of the commonality of the Apple platform and the Google platform. So anything on those platforms speaks the same language. So, now we can talk to everybody. Great. Now we have to figure out how to pull that information in and give it to the person that we're serving.
Totally. Right?
And we're giving it to the school or the team. We're giving them the information. And then how do we service their client, the fan?
Yeah.
The fan is there because they want more information about something they care about. So why should they have to go to a different page to do that? And then what are the benefits if they consume all of that inside that platform that's servicing them? Well, they can make it better.
Right.
Figure out what they want and give it to them.
Totally. So it's like, right, we're integrating all of these things into one place and making it much easier to do exactly what you were doing the whole time, which is pulling all of these pieces and finding out where they intersect and where they come together.
And learn how to make it better. And then if you look at the way the business model, the internet, we think it's just wrong, basically. Whether you agree with that or not, it doesn't matter. We're going off the cliff this way no matter what. So, but the idea that I should show you a pop-up ad, like a billboard, and like that's the best way to get my attention and to engage with me. Like, I don't know about you, but I go to Forbes. I used to like Forbes.com. I can't even go to it. I can't get 7 pop-up ads for cat food.
Pop-ups are my nightmare. They're my nightmare. And
so what you learn when you start studying the pop-up ads is, do you know what the conversion rate is? Meaning, like, do you know how many people actually click on the pop-up ads? It's crazy. 1 in 10,000 pop-ups get clicked on. And if I had to bet, I would say it's because people are trying to get rid of it and they click on it by accident.
Well, the X is so small. It's so small. How are you? It's just if you don't have that precise mouse click, you're in trouble.
Right. And on a phone, it's even smaller. It's even worse.
Right.
So how is this the best way? Like, how does the internet run its advertising model on this? Mm-hmm. And we thought, wow, we could definitely do it better. Mm-hmm. You just look at some of the players that are in the pictures. Whatever is they're wearing, the WVU hat, the Bose headphones with WVU's logo. What if don't they want to buy those? The fans want to wear what the players are wearing in some sense, right? Whether it's the jersey or the hat or the headphones. Why not just let them do what they want to do anyway?
Totally. Yeah, I think the words you used, we were talking earlier, and you kind of were like, these pop-up ads are pushing all of this stuff you don't really want at you. Instead, you kind of use it as a pull effect instead. You're getting to look at the content you want to be watching, whether it's, videos of these players, different pieces the teams are putting out, or whatever it is, that's just in the football setting. But then you're getting to kind of organically interact with that, click on the things that interest you, and then go see maybe where you could purchase something or just see more about that player, which is so interesting.
Yeah, and so that was really important to us, to make sure that experience online was a pull, to let the user do whatever they want. It's self-directed. Mm-hmm. And therefore, the things that they click on when it's self-directed, it's much more valuable information to learn. Right?
So, yeah. Can you talk a little more about that? I mean, right, everyone's talking about like the value of this data, right? We're all hearing about how Facebook's collecting all this data, Google has all this data. Just kind of in a, easy to understand way, where do you see, what is the value of having a platform where you can see what people are doing within that video app? Like, what is the value of the data in this case?
I'll talk about it in terms of the Jacksonville Jaguars. That's where Najee plays right now. And you can think about it in the WVU football app, which is, we want to integrate with them to do the same thing. So what is the value? The value is, one, all the verticals, right, that someone would be shopping in, or in sports and entertainment or anything. They're all different, right? So the first thing you have to do is establish a commonality of the data. You got to figure out how everyone speaks the same language. And most people can't because of that referral model online. I went to this page and then that page, and you don't own any of those pages, right? If you go to ESPN, you go to cooking.com, those are completely different entities. Well, what's cool about sports is if you go through the WVU app or the Jaguars NFL app, there's commonality. Everyone there is a Jaguars fan. So you know that. So every journey they go on, they've got to click the object and then be taken to that page, but we deliver that experience inside that photo or video in the app. Mm-hmm. So now we can map the entire journey. We know how much it means, and every time they click the screen on our side, we get a timestamp. Literally just when you clicked it. And why that matters is we know when you click to go one place to the other, we know how long you were there. Mm-hmm. And so we can measure the length of the user journey. We know how much attention that you give to the things that you care about. And we think that second of attention is going to be the unit of value for data.
Totally. And it's like,
anyway.
Yeah, and it's, so that's how and so then you're using that seconds of attention and that information about what material folks are engaging with, spending time on, or clicking, to then, like you said, build that better story and refine what content is out there that people.
One of our favorite lines is, "To lead, you must serve." And so, like, we've got to serve our client, and the fans are the client of the team and the school. And so we have to serve their client too if we want to service them effectively. And so by giving you what you want, that's, how commerce works in our opinion. And that's kind of been lost. It's kind of been reversed. It's like, no, buy cat food and then buy this. And like, I don't want any of that. Yeah. I only want what I want, and I want to do it with people and things that I like. And I want to experience it in a way that I want to do it on my own time. Like, that's how you service someone. So the second thing we were doing, we realized that when all this stuff was happening on Facebook or Google or somewhere else, those services are so great, but they own all the data. So, like, why would WVU or the NFL build this huge audience globally and then give all the value to those other places? We thought the best thing we could do for them is to make sure that they're accruing the value. They're the ones that built the brand affinity, have been playing football for 100 years. Mm-hmm. Let's keep that money in state and tell better stories and service them better. And so we picked sports and entertainment only because that's where we had an edge. Players, we know the ecosystem. But our technology is really built for more of that. Imagine you wanted to know someone's heart rate when they're going to shoot a foul shot, and you wanted to bet on it. Or it could be for healthcare purposes, for COVID, spotting cases. You want to show more information inside a photo or video, and the fan doesn't have to click if they don't want to see it or they don't want to learn.
Yeah, no, it's wild, and I think what's so interesting, you pointed out, right, this difference where VEEPIO's technology is really allowing these kind of original organic institutions to own their own data and to have then access to better create things for their customers, fans, teams, whoever it ends up being as you all continue to grow. I want to be sensitive. We have a bunch of questions coming in, so I'd love to ask you a couple of the ones that folks that are watching right now are asking. All right. We have, how can VEEPIO integrate with emerging fintech companies to make the consumer experience better?
Sure. So I have a couple ways. One of our investors is John Najarian from CNBC, I think one of the brothers with the ponytail. And so because that's our background, one of the ways we always thought it would happen is, let's say you're a trader and you're watching the price of Apple. And an expert is telling you it's going to go up, and another expert is telling you it's going to go down. Well, in real time, you could click on these charts and get the information of what they said about Apple last time. Or is there news on Apple? Or is someone else that you think is a great trader buying or selling Apple? And so, like, all of your information will be merchandised in one place. And again, capturing your attention. But only because it's something that you want to be doing, right? So that's one way.
Yeah.
So
we got a couple other questions. Everyone's excited to see where this technology can be applied. But, this is all kind of looking forward for VEEPIO. But, things like technologies like VR, virtual reality, smart clothing that's sensing, like you were saying, knowing someone's heart rate before they're taking a foul shot. How do you see all of those technologies kind of coming together to even further what VEEPIO can do?
So we don't even think that we're the best people to figure out what the end use of VEEPIO is. So all it's really doing is drawing a box on an object. If you tell it to draw that object, say your head, is important. All we're doing is telling the computer to draw the XY coordinates of the box and putting a link behind it. That's literally it. So one of the things we're excited about with Vantage Ventures is we want to give the technology to the students. So they don't have to worry about creating a data model, and they can start building businesses and have this super system behind them. And let's see what it's going to be. And one of the reasons we wanted to come back is not only we want to be part of Vantage Ventures and being entrepreneurs in residence, but we want to help them develop the technology in all these fields. Because we've spent 5 years doing it, and there's people that are a lot smarter than us, but most college careers are 4 years. And so if they can take everything we have and build on top of it, they got a much better shot to launch their business and be successful. And we want to be a part of that. And we want to be a part of it for the state, because we think, as we can see, the world has just changed, and there are going to be opportunities in places there haven't been.
Yeah, totally. And like you said, that's what it's all about. It's helping just provide those connections and see what we can make better. This is a good one. What mistake do you think paid off the most for VEEPIO?
How much time do you have?
Well, you have to pick one.
We've literally made millions of mistakes. The first mistake we made was probably the first and one of the best, which is we're building something for mobile phones, right, that integrates with mobile apps. And the first thing we did is build our technology, or attempt to do it, for desktop. And the reason it's a good trick, and the reason you do it, is because those tools have been around for a long time. So I knew I didn't know what I was doing, because I'd never built it before, and neither had the team. So I built it, and we lost the first 10 grand making something that didn't work. But we lost so fast, and we learned so much, that the second thing we tried to build, we eliminated all the mistakes that would have killed us. So, and one thing that's important in technology is you've got to get the basement right. Like if you're building a house, you can never go back and build the basement again. You can change the door and the window, but if the foundation isn't there, it won't work. And so that really helped us build a strong foundation to where we are now. And that was like the first day. And then there's a million more, obviously.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
That's really the other thing advantage. That we figure that if we just tell everyone all the things that we did wrong, it will save them so much time.
Well, worst case, because, people sometimes have trouble learning from others' mistakes, but you can at least help, we can help pump each other back up when the mistakes happen.
Watch our blooper video.
Exactly. Exactly. Okay, and I'll leave us with this one. Do you have a favorite of all the new NFL jerseys that have dropped?
The Jaguars.
Great answer. If not, she's watching. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for chatting today. This has been so fascinating to learn a little more about the thought behind VEEPIO and kind of all the capabilities that are there. I know there's so much more we could unpack, so maybe we'll have to have you back. But if there are any parting words that you want to leave with folks watching and people at home that are maybe thinking about starting up their own thing or haven't decided if entrepreneurism's the path for them, feel free. Or maybe there's folks that are in the middle, in the thick of making some of those mistakes like you were talking about, and in these kind of different times, trying to adapt and figure out how to be most effective. So
one of the things I want to do with you guys is I have saved all the books and materials and podcasts I've read or listened to in the last 5 years doing this, so we can post that if that's a good resource for everybody.
Absolutely.
There was a podcast that was of the best startup people that was taught at Stanford called How to Start a Startup. It is awesome. It's the best person in the world telling you about 15 different phases, things you would never even think of if you haven't done it. And the last one is a description of the startup process that I got from Reid Hoffman, which I love, which is like starting a startup is like jumping off a cliff and building a plane on the way down. And like that analogy best encompasses the process. And so if no one's ever heard it, that's what you're about to get into, but it's fun.
Love it. Love it. Well, that sounds great. We'll leave it at that. And thank you again for joining us. This has been really wonderful.
Appreciate it. Talk to you soon. Bye-bye.
All right.